Keanu sat in silence, his eyes heavy with unspoken memories. Anna leaned gently close, her voice soft like a whisper of hope. But Sandra watched with jealous eyes, her heart aching in the quiet. And then a letter arrived, a broken promise that would change everything. 3 nights remained, and the storm was only beginning. The evening began with soft light pouring through wide windows. The city outside was alive, cars rushing, people moving. But inside, the quiet of the room felt different, almost heavy, like something unsaid was floating in the air. Keanu Reeves sat in silence, his face calm yet unreadable. He was the kind of man who carried storms inside, but never let them spill out easily. His quietness was not emptiness. It was weight. It was history. Ana de Armas leaned gently closer to him, her voice soft as if she didn't want to disturb the stillness. "Keanu," she whispered, her tone filled with care, almost fear, like she was about to step into a fragile space. In that simple movement, her shoulder brushing close, her eyes searching for his, the entire energy in the room shifted. It was not dramatic, but it was powerful, like when the air changes before rain falls. Across from them, Sandra Bullock sat, her eyes locked on the two of them. She didn't move. She didn't speak, but her silence was loud. Her eyes were not cruel, but they carried a heat, a deep mix of emotions, jealousy, longing, confusion. She had known Keanu for years, through laughter, through shared stories, through times when both of them were just shadows in crowded rooms, holding on to small kindnesses. To see Anna leaning near him now was like watching a door close slowly in her face. For the first 5 minutes, the scene itself said everything without words. Silence, glances, breath. The kind of silence that makes viewers lean forward, waiting, almost afraid to blink. This was the hook. Something simple, yet heavy with meaning. Something so many people know in their own lives. The moment when closeness between two people awakens something hidden in a third heart. Keanu finally spoke, his voice low, thoughtful. "Sometimes I feel like the world is too fast," he said. "Everyone rushes, but I need quiet." His words were gentle, but they hung in the air like a truth too heavy to ignore. Anna's hand almost moved toward his, then stopped. She understood his silence better than most, and in her closeness there was no noise, only respect. "Quiet can be a home, too," she replied softly. Sandra's eyes shifted. Her chest tightened, not because of anger, but because she remembered nights when she had been the one to say words like that to him, when she had been the one who could sit beside him in silence and know it mattered. The jealousy inside her was not ugly. It was human. It came from memory, from loss, from a small voice that whispered, "You are being replaced." The story deepened as time stretched. A knock on the door broke the silence. It was unexpected, sharp like life, reminding them that no moment stays untouched. Keanu stood slowly and opened it. On the other side was a delivery man holding a plain box. There was no name on it, no return address. Keanu accepted it quietly and placed it on the table. Anna and Sandra both leaned forward, their curiosity pulling them closer. Keanu opened the box, and inside was a simple folded letter. His fingers trembled slightly as he lifted it. He read silently at first, his expression unreadable, but then his eyes softened, and something close to pain crossed his face. "What does it say?" Anna asked gently. Keanu looked at them, his voice steady but filled with depth. "It says, never forget the promise you made when you chose the path of kindness. The world will test you, but stay true. Respect is your greatest shield." Sandra's eyes widened. She knew exactly what the letter meant. It was from someone from his past, someone who had seen him when he was at his lowest. Her jealousy began to fade, replaced by something heavier, fear. She knew this was not just a message. It was a warning. Anna's hand finally touched Keanu's just for a moment. "Do you think someone is watching you?" she asked. Keanu stayed quiet. His silence was his answer. He felt it too. And so the evening that began with a simple lean, a simple silence, turned into something much larger. This was no longer just about unspoken feelings between friends. This was about a test, about promises made, about choices that would demand resilience, humility, and strength. In that room, 3 hearts beat with different emotions: love, jealousy, fear. but all were about to be pulled into something far greater than themselves. This was only the beginning. Silence, shadows, and a warning unseen. The night grew heavier after the letter was read. Keanu kept the small paper in his hand, his eyes fixed on it like he was searching for something between the lines. Outside, the city noise echoed faintly, but inside the room there was only stillness. Silence itself became a character, pressing against their breaths, whispering things none of them wanted to say out loud. Anna leaned closer again, her eyes filled with both worry and tenderness. She wanted to reach for him, to take the letter and carry some of the weight herself, but she stopped. She knew Keanu's silence was not something to interrupt. His quiet was not weakness. It was a shield. Sandra, however, could not hold her voice anymore. "Keanu, who sent that letter?" she asked, her voice sharp, almost breaking the air that had been so heavy. Keanu looked at her, then at Anna, and finally folded the letter slowly. "Someone who remembers," he said softly. Those words were not enough. They left more questions hanging. Who remembers? What promise? Why now? Anna's eyes searched his face, her voice trembling with care. "Are you in danger?" Keanu sighed. The sound was low, but it carried years of memory. "Danger never leaves," he whispered. "It just waits in the shadows." The hook tightened here, the kind that makes a listener freeze, wanting to know what shadows he meant, what history was hiding in his silence. A sudden crack of thunder outside made them all jump. The storm had come without warning, as storms often do, crashing into a night that had seemed calm. The rain began to strike against the windows, fast, urgent, like fists demanding to be let in. Sandra folded her arms, her eyes restless. She wasn't jealous anymore, not now. What she felt instead was fear, mixed with an ache she could not hide. "You can't keep this to yourself," she said firmly. "If someone is watching you, then they're watching all of us." Keanu turned to her, his expression soft but unyielding. "Sandra, I never wanted anyone else to carry this." Her voice cracked. "But we already are." The storm outside grew louder, and then the lights flickered, dimming the room into shadows. For a brief second, everything went black. The sound of rain filled the silence. When the lights came back, there was something chilling on the table. Another envelope placed right beside the first box. None of them had seen anyone enter. None of them had heard footsteps. Anna gasped, her hand covering her mouth. "How is that possible?" she whispered. Keanu slowly picked up the envelope, his eyes narrowing, but his hand steady. He opened it carefully. Inside was not a letter this time, but a photograph. In the photograph, Keanu was sitting on a park bench. It looked like it had been taken earlier that same day. He was alone, his face thoughtful, his body still, unaware of the camera. Anna's eyes widened with shock. "They've been close to you today," she said, her voice breaking into fear. Sandra stepped closer, anger rising in her chest. "This isn't just a warning. It's a threat." Keanu stayed quiet, his mind working in silence. His stillness was no longer calm. It was sharp, like a blade kept hidden in its sheath. Then, softly, he spoke. "It means they want me to remember. They want me to face what I left behind." Anna's voice shook. "But what did you leave behind, Keanu?" He looked at her, his eyes heavy with memories too dark to share. "I once made a promise to a man who saved me when I had nothing. He told me kindness was my only way forward. I kept that promise. But maybe I failed him. Maybe someone believes I broke it." The rain hammered harder against the windows. Thunder cracked again, rattling the air. Sandra lowered her voice, her jealousy gone, her anger melting into something softer. "Keanu, you don't have to carry this alone. You've carried too much alone already." Anna nodded, her hand finally holding his. "We'll stand with you." For a moment, Keanu's silence cracked and emotion filled his eyes. But then, before he could answer, a shadow moved outside the window. Just a flash, a blur, a figure standing in the rain watching. All three of them froze. The shadow didn't run. It didn't hide. It simply stood there still, as if it wanted them to know it was real. Anna's grip on Keanu's hand tightened. "They're here," she whispered, her voice trembling. Keanu stood slowly, his face calm but his eyes burning with quiet strength. "Then it begins tonight," he said. The story deepened into a darker layer now. What began as a fragile triangle of silence, jealousy, and unspoken feelings had transformed into a dangerous path of memory, promises, and shadows. And as the storm raged on outside, the three of them understood something that would not let viewers turn away. None of them could return to the life they had before. Their world had already changed. Promises in the storm outside had not slowed. Rain lashed against the glass, wild and endless, like the sky itself was warning them. The figure outside the window was gone now, but its presence still clung to the air, like smoke that lingers after fire. No one spoke at first. Silence pressed down on them again, but this time it was not peaceful. It was heavy, sharp, the kind of silence that makes hearts beat louder inside the chest. Keanu stood near the window, his face unreadable, but inside him there was a storm far greater than the one outside. He could feel memories rising, memories he had buried for years. He thought he could protect the people he cared about by staying quiet. But the letter and the photograph proved something cruel. The past always finds a way back. Anna broke the silence first, her voice trembling but strong enough to cut through. Keanu, whoever they are, they don't just want to remind you. They want to hurt you. They want to make you afraid. He turned to her slowly, his eyes softer than his voice. I'm not afraid for myself, he said. Fear doesn't reach me anymore. But I am afraid for those who sit with me now. Anna's hand tightened around his arm. Then don't carry this alone. Sandra moved closer, too, her arms folded, her eyes burning not with jealousy anymore, but with something stronger. Protectiveness. You think you're protecting us by keeping secrets, but that's how danger grows. You've carried your silence for years, Keanu. But if you don't tell us the truth now, we can't stand beside you. Her words hung in the air, firm and unshakable. They were not just words of anger. They were words of care disguised as steel. Keanu closed his eyes for a moment. The sound of thunder cracked again, and when he opened them, he knew he could not stay silent any longer. Years ago, he began, his voice low but steady. I was in a place where kindness felt like a lie. I had lost so much. I didn't believe in people anymore. Then I met someone. He was not rich, not famous, not strong in the way the world respects. But he gave me food when I was hungry. He gave me a place to sleep when I had nothing. He asked for nothing in return. He said, remember this night, Keanu. One day the world will test you, and when it does, show kindness to others as I showed it to you. Anna listened with tears gathering in her eyes. Sandra lowered her gaze, her jealousy forgotten, her heart aching. Keanu continued, his voice breaking just slightly. I promised him I would. I promised I would never turn away from someone who needed me. And for years I tried. But there was a moment, a night I can't forget, when I failed. I walked away when someone begged me to stay. I told myself I couldn't help them, and they suffered because of me. The words hit like thunder inside the room. Anna's hand slipped into his, her eyes wet. You didn't fail, Keanu. You're human. You can't save everyone. But Sandra's voice was different, firmer, sharper. No, Anna. Listen to what he's saying. Someone out there believes he broke that promise, and they don't want forgiveness. They want him to pay. As she said this, another sound rose above the storm, a soft scraping against the door. Slow, deliberate, as if someone wanted them to know they were there. Anna gasped, clutching Keanu's hand tighter. Sandra stepped forward, her body tense. Keanu moved to the door, his footsteps heavy but calm. He opened it slowly. Nothing. Only the echo of rain splashing on the steps outside, but then, at his feet, he saw it. Another envelope. Smaller this time, but sealed with a deep red wax, pressed with a mark. A circle crossed by a single line, like a scar drawn in ink. Keanu bent down, picked it up, and brought it back inside. Sandra watched, her jaw tight. Anna leaned forward, her breath shallow. He broke the seal carefully. Inside was just one short sentence written in black ink. A broken promise brings broken nights. Anna shivered. Sandra clenched her fists. Keanu stayed still, staring at the words. They're not just warning you, Sandra said quietly. They're hunting you, but Keanu shook his head. No, they're testing me. They want to see if I'll hide or if I'll face what I've run from. Anna's tears slipped down her cheeks. Then we'll face it with you. Keanu looked at her, then at Sandra. The storm outside raged louder, like the sky itself was listening. He finally nodded. Then tonight we begin a journey none of us can turn away from. But understand this. Once we step into it, nothing will be the same. And as the candlelight flickered across their faces, the photograph on the table seemed to move slightly in the breeze, almost alive, almost watching. The storm outside was no longer just weather. It was a sign the past had returned, and the test had already begun. The night of broken silence. The rain slowed to a whisper by dawn, but the house still carried the storm inside its walls. None of them had slept. The photograph lay on the table like a silent witness, the red-sealed envelope beside it, and every shadow in the room felt alive. Every creak of the floor, every flicker of light made the air heavier, as if the house itself was listening. The hook began when a faint knock came at the back door. Not sharp, not urgent, but slow and steady, like someone tapping with measured patience. Tap, tap, tap. The sound cut through the silence like a knife. Anna's eyes widened, her hand reaching for Keanu's arm. Not again, she whispered, her voice breaking. Sandra stood taller, her jaw tight. We can't keep hiding. If they want us to hear them, then let them speak. Keanu walked slowly toward the back door. His footsteps were steady, but inside him every step carried a memory of the promise, the guilt, the weight he had tried to bury. When he opened the door, the morning air rushed in, cold and damp, carrying the smell of wet earth. But there was no person standing outside. Only a small object wrapped in black cloth placed carefully on the doorstep. Keanu picked it up, brought it inside, and unwrapped it. Inside the cloth was a broken watch, its glass cracked, its hands frozen at exactly 3 o'clock. Beneath it was a folded piece of paper. The paper said only 5 words. Time is running out, friend, Anna gasped. Why do they call you friend? Keanu's voice was low. Because once we were. Sandra's face hardened. So this isn't just about a broken promise. This is someone you knew, someone close. Keanu didn't answer. His silence said more than words. The hook deepened now, drawing the viewers further in, because it was no longer about strangers in the shadows. It was about betrayal, about history twisted into threat. Anna's voice shook. Keanu, please tell us who. He finally spoke, his voice quiet but heavy. His name was Jonas. He was the man who saved me when I was at my lowest. I promised him I would never turn away from kindness. But years later, when he needed me, I wasn't there. I thought I was protecting myself. I thought I was too broken to help. And that choice broke him. I never saw him again. Sandra stepped closer, her eyes sharp with both anger and sadness. And now he's come back to test you. Keanu shook his head slowly. Or to destroy me. The broken watch ticked in their minds, even if it was frozen. It became a symbol, a countdown none of them could see. Before they could speak again, the phone on the wall rang. The sudden sound cut the air like thunder. All 3 froze. The phone had not rung in months. Keanu picked it up slowly, pressing it to his ear. A voice spoke, low, distorted, but filled with something personal, something that pierced him deeper than the storm. 3 o'clock, Keanu. You left me waiting that night. You left me to break alone. Now I will leave you waiting, and I will watch what you love most fall into silence. Kindness is no longer your shield. It is your curse. The line went dead. Keanu lowered the phone, his hands shaking for the first time. Anna's tears spilled over. They're going to hurt you. They're going to hurt us. Sandra clenched her fists, her voice sharp. Then we fight. If Jonas wants to test you, then let him see you're not alone anymore. Keanu closed his eyes. His voice came out broken but strong. You don't understand. Jonas doesn't fight with fists. He fights with silence. He knows every fear, every memory. He will not strike where I am strong. He will strike where I am weak. The storm outside had passed, but the storm inside had only begun. Then, as the first light of day touched the window, they saw it, scratched into the glass itself, words written with something sharp. 3 nights remain. Anna screamed softly, covering her mouth. Sandra stepped back, her heart pounding. Keanu stared at the words, his face pale but steady. He's counting down. The story had shifted again. No longer a simple warning, no longer a shadow. It was now a clock, ticking, every second pulling them closer to something they could not escape. And in that moment, all three of them knew. This was no longer about Keanu's past alone. This was about their future, and whether they would survive the nights ahead. The test had become a hunt, and the first night had already ended. 3 nights remain. The morning air felt heavy, even though the storm had passed. The words scratched into the glass, 3 nights remain, still shone in the pale sunlight like a wound carved into the window. It was no longer just a message. It was a sentence, a countdown pressing on their hearts. The hook began when Keanu stepped closer to the glass and touched the words with his fingertips. They were real, carved deep, impossible to ignore. He stayed silent for a long time, and the silence itself dragged the room into fear. Anna clung to his arm, her breath unsteady, her heart loud in her chest. Sandra stood behind them, her arms crossed, but her eyes betrayed her. Fear was there too, hiding beneath her strength. Anna whispered, "He's playing with us. He wants us to break before the nights are gone." Keanu's voice was low, steady, but carrying weight. Jonas doesn't strike fast. He was always patient. Patience is his weapon. He waits until your own mind destroys you. Sandra's frustration cracked through her calm. Then stop waiting for him, Keanu. Go find him. End this before he ends us. Keanu looked at her, his eyes filled with quiet sorrow. You can't find someone who lives in the shadows. He will only show himself when he decides. And when he does, it will not be where I am ready. It will be where I am weakest. Those words cut through them. The hook tightened, because weakness was no longer just a memory. Weakness now had a clock. The hours crawled through the day. Every sound in the house felt louder than it should be. The ticking of the broken watch, though frozen, echoed in their minds. Keanu sat in silence most of the time, his eyes far away. Anna tried to distract him with soft conversation, telling small stories of hope, of times when she believed life was brighter. Sandra, meanwhile, kept pacing, her mind restless, her anger at Jonas growing stronger. As night approached, the air thickened. The second night of the countdown was about to begin. Then the hook deepened again. A package arrived at the door. Not knocked, not delivered, just sitting there as if it had always been. Sandra opened it quickly, too quickly, her impatience spilling over. Inside was a small music box, old and tarnished. When she turned the handle, it played a broken tune, familiar, haunting, a melody half-remembered. Keanu froze when he heard it. Anna noticed. You know this song, she whispered. Keanu nodded slowly, his eyes dark with memory. Jonas used to play it. He said it was the sound of nights that never healed. Inside the music box was another photograph. This one showed not Keanu alone, but Anna and Sandra, taken from the window only hours ago, both of them sitting beside him as he read the first letter. Anna's breath broke. He's inside our world now. He's not just watching you. He's watching us. Sandra slammed the box shut, fury in her eyes. Then he's already crossed a line, and I won't let him use us to break you. But Keanu shook his head, his voice steady but filled with pain. That's exactly what he wants. He doesn't need to hurt me. He only needs to make me watch. The night grew darker. They locked the doors, closed the curtains, but the house still felt open, as if the walls themselves were thin. As midnight neared, they heard it. Footsteps upstairs, but no one had gone upstairs all day. Sandra grabbed a lamp, her hands shaking but her voice firm. We can't hide anymore. Anna clung to Keanu, her eyes wide. Don't go up there. What if it's him? Keanu stood slowly. Then it's time to face him. They climbed the stairs together, every creak of the wood louder than thunder. The hallway stretched before them, dim, cold, with shadows that seemed to move even when nothing was there. At the end of the hall, the door to the guest room was slightly open. Keanu pushed it gently. Inside, the room was empty, but on the bed lay another envelope. He opened it. Inside was not a message, but a mirror. Small, cracked, its surface cloudy. Carved into the back were words, "Look at yourself, Keanu. You are already broken." Anna's tears slipped down her cheeks. Sandra's anger flared. Keanu held the mirror. His reflection fractured. Pieces of his face split by cracks. And then, from the shadows of the hallway, came a sound. Not footsteps, not knocking. A voice, soft, low, but clear. 2 nights remain. All 3 of them froze. The voice was gone as quickly as it came. Keanu set the mirror down, his hands trembling slightly. He's here. He's inside these walls. The house no longer felt like shelter. It felt like a trap. And as the second night began, they all understood something they had feared but not spoken. Jonas was not just testing Keanu. He was breaking all of them, piece by piece, night by night. The countdown was not a warning. It was a promise. The last night, the house was no longer a home. It was a cage. Shadows pressed against the walls. Every breath felt heavy, and the sound of the broken music box still echoed in their heads. The mirror lay on the table, cracked, reflecting 3 faces that looked more tired, more broken than they had only 2 nights ago. And across the glass of the window, the words still lingered. 3 nights remain, but now, only 1 night was left. The hook began when the clock struck midnight. The chimes echoed through the silent rooms, and then, as if on cue, the lights flickered and went out. Darkness swallowed everything. Anna gripped Keanu's hand, trembling. "This is it. Tonight he comes." Sandra raised the lamp she had kept close, her face pale but her voice steady. "Then let him come." "I am not afraid anymore." Keanu stayed quiet for a long moment. Then he whispered, "Fear doesn't matter. What matters is what we choose when it arrives." The night grew colder. A soft tapping began again, but not at the door this time. It came from inside the walls. Tap! Tap! Tap, moving slowly around them, like someone walking through the very bones of the house. Then a voice. Not loud, not harsh, but soft, almost tender. "Keanu?" They froze. The voice came from the darkness itself, a whisper threading through the air. "You left me that night. You left me when I needed you most. Now you will understand what it feels like to be left." Anna clung tighter, her tears falling. "Jonas, if you can hear me, he has carried that guilt for years. Don't you see? Hurting him doesn't heal you," the voice answered, sharper now. "You know nothing." Silence was his gift to me. Silence that broke me. Keanu stepped forward into the dark, his voice calm but heavy. "Jonas, I failed you. I know that. I broke the promise I made, and I have carried that failure every day since. If you want me, then take me, but leave them out of it." The silence that followed was long, unbearable. Then footsteps. Slow, deliberate. From the dark hallway, a figure emerged. Jonas. His face was worn, older than Keanu remembered, his eyes hollow yet burning with something that was not anger alone. It was pain, carved deep, pain that had never healed. He stepped closer, his voice steady but cracked. "You speak of promises, but promises mean nothing when they come too late." Sandra stood between them, her body tense. "If you came here to break him, you'll have to break us too." Anna's voice shook, but she spoke with courage. "Jonas, look at him. He has carried your pain all this time. Is that not enough? Is that not punishment?" Jonas's eyes shifted to them, then back to Keanu. "You think words heal?" he said. "You think regret brings back what was lost?" Keanu's voice broke slightly. "No, regret changes nothing, but kindness still can. I failed you once, Jonas, but let me stand with you now. Let me share the weight. Not as a shield, not as a hero, but as a friend who remembers." Jonas's hand trembled. For a moment, his rage cracked. His eyes softened, the storm inside him flickering. But then he pulled from his coat another photograph. This one of himself, alone, sitting in darkness, waiting. He held it out, his voice breaking. "This is what your silence gave me." Keanu took the photograph gently, his hands steady, his eyes wet. "And this is what your memory gave me," he whispered. "A reason to keep choosing kindness even when it hurts. Jonas, if you destroy me now, then everything you once gave me dies too." But if you forgive me, even a little, then your gift will never die." The room grew quiet. The tapping in the walls stopped. The air itself seemed to pause. Jonas's eyes filled with tears. His voice cracked like glass. "Forgiveness is harder than hate." Anna stepped forward, her voice soft. "But it is heavier when you don't let it go." Sandra's voice followed, firm. "Don't let the promise you gave him become poison. Let it become light again." Jonas's body shook. The rage seemed to drain from him, leaving only sorrow. He sank slowly to the floor, his head bowed, his voice barely a whisper. "I waited for you. For so long." Keanu knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "And now I am here. I cannot change the past, Jonas, but I will not walk away again." The silence that followed was no longer sharp. It was heavy but soft, like a wound finally touched by light. Jonas wept quietly, and in that sound, the storm inside the house began to break. The shadows eased. The air grew lighter. The weight of the countdown vanished, the words on the glass fading as if they had never been there. Anna cried softly into her hands. Sandra looked away, her own tears hidden. Her heart caught between pain and relief. Keanu stayed by Jonas's side, his eyes filled not with victory but with humility. He knew this was not an ending, but a beginning, one built on forgiveness, on resilience, on the fragile yet unbreakable strength of kindness. When dawn finally came, the house no longer felt like a trap. It felt quiet again, but this time the silence was different. Not heavy, not sharp, it was peace. Jonas stood slowly, his eyes red, his body weak, but his heart less burdened. He looked at Keanu, Anna, and Sandra. No words were spoken. None were needed. And as the first light of morning touched them, the promise once broken became whole again, not by perfection, but by the simple act of choosing kindness, even in the face of fear. The story had ended, but its truth would remain.